A couple weeks ago, I did a video on the best modern designed cartridge. In today's video, we're going to be looking at the classics, the ones that have been doing it for a long time. We're going to find out which one is the best design, which one is the best all-around classic hunting cartridge. To start it off, we're going to go with one of the originals, the OG, the 6.5 by 55 Swede. The European favorite, the cartridge that hits well above its weight. It's a good one. Let's look at the All-American, the 30-06 Springfield. Back-to-back World War winners. Possibly the best do-it-all cartridge. This one's going to be tough to not put in the top three.
27.49.
Then we have Jack O'Connor's favorite, the Fanatical 270 Winchester with its flat trajectories. Debatable on whether the 30-06 is really the parent case or the 30-03. This cartridge has been doing it since 1925. It is a great deer cartridge and an adequate elk cartridge. The 270 Winchester, it's a good one. The 308 Winchester, efficient, accurate, very good military cartridge, and a very good do-it-all hunting cartridge. It certainly isn't the fastest, doesn't have the flattest trajectory, but it's just darn good. Up next, we have what I think is the best 308 child. This is the 7mm 08 Remington, and it gives the 308 Winchester a run for its money. This one is a darn good one. It's just so efficient, flatter trajectory than a 308. Yeah, it's darn good. The other really good child of a 308 Winchester, some might say this is the best deer slayer, we have the 243 Winchester. My first cartridge, and a darn good one. We had to keep it in here. We had to include it. Let's step into the Weatherby realm. We have Roy Weatherby's favorite, the 257 Weatherby. While it is not extremely versatile in bullet weight, it makes up for that in pure velocity. This one is a burner. And what I believe to be one of the most underrated and underappreciated Weatherby cartridge, the 270 Weatherby. This is a 270 Winchester on steroids. It is one of the flattest shooting cartridges in the world. It's a darn good one. And of course, we will have the 300 Weatherby in this contest. The 300 Weatherby is the most popular Weatherby cartridge. It is probably the most versatile Weatherby cartridge. It's just a great do-it-all cartridge. The current king of 30 calibers, the 300 Winchester Magnum. This cartridge is the do-it-all cartridge. It is the cartridge that most people are going to use for big game hunting. Of course, we had to include the most popular 7mm Magnum. It is the 7mm Remington Magnum, the cartridge that kicks like a 30-06 but has flatter trajectory and more energy than a 30-06. Now let's not forget about the 264 Winchester Magnum, the cartridge that the gun riders might have just killed off. The cartridge that if it was introduced now would be an absolute hit. The 264 Win Mag deserves better. And of course, how could we not include the Super 30, the original 30 caliber Magnum, the 300 H&H, which is the parent case to a lot of the Weatherby cartridges and other Magnum cartridges. This one's the original. It's still very relevant to this day. The 300 H&H Magnum. Now before I start grading the cartridges, I just wanted to show you how I'm grading them. It's off of these subjects, and this is how they grade. So when you see a number at the very end, you're not all confused on how I got there. Let's just go ahead and start it off with the 270 Winchester. A good cartridge, but an extremely overhyped cartridge. In fact, I feel like the 270 fanboys' mission in this world is to preach the good news of the 270 Winchester. Now, what we're going to use an AccuBond long range, a 150 grain, and we're going to get near max velocities with all of these for hand loading. So those are the numbers, the velocity and energy, then the velocity at 500 yards, and the energy at 500 yards. And then drop, that one is going to be in MOA. Then we are going to look at recoil. This is with an 8-pound gun, so it's in a very light setup. Now the powder, that's usually how much powder you're burning at the max. And I gave it a good. Bullet diameter is okay. Availability, extremely good. Versatility, it's okay. Now, it could be good in the future because fast twist 270s are coming, but as for factory ammo, it's not very versatile. Price, very good. Overall points, 25. Moving on to the 30-06, we are going to use a 168 grain Accubon long range. There is your muzzle velocity and energy, your velocity at 500 yards, and your energy at 500 yards. Your drop, 8.47. Recoil, 25. Not terrible, but not great either. Powder-wise, this is a very efficient cartridge. The bullet diameter is great for hunting. Availability is the best. The versatility is also extremely hard to beat. And price is very good. So it does get a very high score of 29. Onto the European darling, the 6.5x55 Swede. We are going to use a 142 grain Accubon long range. And there is your muzzle velocity and energy, your velocity at 500 yards, and then your energy at 500 yards. That is not great. The drop is also the most out of the three we reviewed. Recoil, extremely mild recoiling. How much powder is it using? 47 grains. It's pretty good. It's relatively efficient. Bullet diameter. You Europeans are going to hate me. I do think it's pretty poor diameter at 264. Availability is good, especially in Europe. Versatility, I put it as okay instead of poor, just because I know the Europeans love to use like a 160 grain bullet, where us Americans probably won't. Price, not too bad. Overall points, 20. Let's move on to the Super 30, the 300 H&H Magnum with a 190 grain Accubon long range. There is your muzzle velocity and energy at 500 yards. There's the numbers for it. The drop, not bad, not great. Recoil is definitely getting up there, but not too terrible. There's the numbers for how much powder it's usually burning. It's not too bad. It's actually pretty efficient. Bullet diameter, it's hard to beat, 30 caliber. Availability, pretty poor. Versatility, pretty darn good. Price, it's very expensive. Overall score, 21. Now let's talk about one of my personal favorites, the 300 Weatherby Magnum. We are going to use that 190 ABLR, muzzle velocity and energy. Whew, this thing is a heavy hitter. At 500 yards, it is going fast and providing a ton of energy at 500. Drop, definitely the flattest of any cartridge so far. Recoil, this is where it kind of hurts the cartridge. It's got a lot in an 8-pound gun. Powder, it's not great. You're burning a lot of powder, but you are getting a lot of velocity. Bullet diameter, obviously really good. Availability, it's actually pretty good, but not the best. Versatility, extremely versatile. Price, that's another thing that hurts it, but an overall score of 26. Up next, we have the 7mm Remington Magnum. We're going to use a 168 grain Accubon long range. There is your numbers for velocity and energy. At 500 yards, the bullet's going pretty good, and the energy is not too shabby. The drop is also pretty good, not the 300 Weatherby good. Then recoil, it's a decent amount, but not too terrible. As far as powder burning, this cartridge was considered a long time ago as an overbore cartridge. I wouldn't go that far, but it's okay. Bullet diameter, it's really good. Availability, extremely good. Versatility, pretty darn good. Price, very good. Overall points, 25. On to the king of 30 caliber 300 Winchester Magnum with a 190 grain Accubon long range. Your muzzle velocity and your energy, extremely good. And your velocity at 500 yards and your energy, all good. Drop, it's right there with the 7 mag. Recoil, it's a bit more. This is a pretty heavy recoiling cartridge. As far as efficiency, you're burning usually around 76 grains of powder. It's okay. Bullet diameter, again, really good. Availability, well, it's going to have the best, the versatility the best, and the price is best with an overall score of 28. Now we are on to 264 Winchester Magnum, which is basically a dead cartridge, but we're going to use a 142 grain AccuBond long range and a muzzle velocity 3,100 feet per second. I think it's doable with a 26-inch barrel. At 500 yards, you have really good velocity. Your energy is a bit low just because of how small the bullet is, and your drop, very good. Almost there with the 300 Weatherby. Recoil, also extremely good. This is kind of where it drops off, though. It is an extremely overbore cartridge. The bullet diameter is quite small, being 6.5. Availability is extremely poor. Versatility is also poor. And for price, it's not bad, but it's not great either. It's okay. And overall score, 17. On to the 270 Weatherby. We're going to use a 150 grain AccuBond long range at a blistering velocity of 3,200. Look at the energy, more than a 7 mag. At 500 yards, it's up there with the 300 Weatherby in velocity. And the energy is a bit lower, but still pretty darn good. Your drop, yep, right there with the 300 Weatherby. Again, this is one of the flattest cartridges in the world. Recoil, it is pretty stout for a 270. Powder-wise, it's okay. It's certainly not efficient, but it's not extremely overbore either. The bullet diameter, again, it's 270. Availability, Weatherby does support this pretty well, but even at that, it's okay. Versatility, it's hampered by its 1 in 10 twist. Price is, well, very expensive. The overall score comes in at 21 points. Now let's jump to something completely different in the 308 Winchester. We are going to use a 168 grain AccuBond long range, and the velocity is pretty darn good for how small the case is. There's your energy. At 500 yards, you are still going fast enough to expand, and your energy is just barely good enough for elk-size game. Drop, well, this thing is going to drop the most. Recoil, very mild, extremely good. Your powder burning, this is one of the most efficient cartridges. The bullet diameter, obviously very good. Availability, there's nothing that actually beats 308 Winchester. The versatility, if this had a bigger case, I would put it as best, but since you are kind of prohibited by the lack of velocity you would get if you were wanting to shoot like a 210 grain bullet, I'll put it as good instead of best. Price is really hard to beat. So your overall score is very good at 28. On to the 7mm 08 Remington. We are going to use a 150 grain AccuBond long range at 2850. There's your muzzle energy, pretty good. At 500 yards, the bullet's still going fast enough to expand. However, your energy is really dropped. This is probably not the best long distance cartridge. Your drop is also not so great as well. Recoil, though, well, it's one of the lightest so far. Efficiency, almost as good as the 308 Winchester. The bullet diameter, it's good. You're shooting bullets from 120 up to 175. Availability, it's pretty good. Versatility, good. Price, pretty darn good. An overall score of 25 points. On to the 243 Winchester. This one's a bit small for a do-it-all hunting cartridge, but the 243 fans definitely wanted this one in there. 100 grain ballistic tip at a very good velocity of 3150. Your energy is pretty low. And at 500 yards, yeah, well, at 500, this is really not a good hunting cartridge at that distance. The drops, not too shabby. Recoil, definitely the least of everyone. This thing hardly kicks at all. I would say it's relatively efficient. You could also make an argument it's pretty overbore too. Bullet diameter is definitely in the red. Availability, very good. Versatility, yeah, it's not a great do-it-all hunting cartridge. And price is very hard to beat. The overall score comes in at 21. All right, we are to the last cartridge, the 257 Weatherby Magnum, one of my personal favorites. We're using a 110 grain AccuBond at a muzzle velocity of 3,500 feet per second. Your energy better than the 270. At 500 yards, the bullets still go on extremely fast to expand. However, you're shooting a 110 grain bullet, so your energy is quite low. Drop, well, it kind of smokes everyone. It is the flattest shooting cartridge on the list. Recoil, it's kind of stout. It's very similar to a 270. This is not efficient whatsoever. Bullet diameter is not very good for a do-it-all hunting cartridge. Availability, well, this is one of the most popular Weatherby cartridges, so it's okay. Versatility, extremely poor. Price is very expensive. So you'll be really surprised that one of my favorite cartridges is graded so low. But, well, it's not versatile and it's very expensive. I give it an 18. All right, let's see who finished on the podium. In first place, this is really no surprise. I even asked you, my community, what the best classic cartridge is, and the majority of you said the 30-06. It came in with 29 points. In second place, honestly, maybe it should be in first place, but they're so darn close. The 300 Win Mag, the only downside to this cartridge is it has a decent amount of recoil, but man, you're getting a great performance at a great cost with the 300 Win Mag. In third place, 308 Winchester is the little cartridge that could. It's definitely a little light, in my opinion, but a lot of people swear by it, and it's just hard not to have it this high up. I thought I would show you top 5. So coming in fourth place, the 300 Weatherby with 26 points. Fifth place, there is a 3-way tie with the 7 Rem Mag 270 and the 7mm 08 at 25 points. And I thought I would show you the dead last cartridge, which sadly kind of really describes the 264 Winchester Magnum, a dead cartridge at 17 points.